If you pull up a live flight tracker over Asia right now, you'll notice something unsettling. A massive, dark void over the roof of the world. Every single day, thousands of commercial flights crisscross the globe, yet an area larger than Western Europe sits virtually empty. It's not a military no-fly zone, and it's certainly not a lack of airspace demand. Most people assume airliner engines simply can't breathe in the thin air over Mount Everest. But a modern airliner cruising at 35,000 to 39,000 feet easily clears Everest's peak by thousands of feet. So why do international airlines burn millions of dollars in extra fuel every year just to fly around it? Because if a single emergency happens over this terrain, the math behind airline safety completely collapses. To understand the danger, you have to look at what happens when something goes wrong at 35,000 feet. If a cabin loses pressure, the air becomes too thin to sustain human consciousness within seconds. Emergency oxygen masks instantly drop from the ceiling. But those masks don't rely on endless compressed oxygen tanks. They use chemical oxygen generators that only supply about 15 to 22 minutes of air. Standard aviation procedure requires pilots to execute an immediate, steep descent to 10,000 feet, where the air is dense enough for passengers to breathe normally without masks. Here's the fatal flaw. The Tibetan Plateau has an average elevation exceeding 14,000 feet, with ridges topping 20,000. If a plane depressurizes over the Himalayas, the pilot cannot descend to 10,000 feet without flying directly into a mountain face. Trapped at extreme altitude, the plane would exhaust its emergency oxygen reserve long before reaching safe, low-elevation terrain. The danger isn't limited to cabin pressure. Consider an engine failure. Modern twin-engine jets are fully capable of flying on one engine, but not at top cruising altitude. Losing an engine forces a plane into a slow, mandatory descent known as a drift down, usually settling around 20,000 to 25,000 feet. Over flat terrain, this isn't an issue. Over the Himalayas, it puts the aircraft dangerously close to jagged peaks. Making matters worse, this region is an emergency landing desert. If an airliner suffers an uncontained engine fire or medical emergency, there are virtually no diversion airports equipped to handle a fully loaded wide-body jet. The few airports that do exist, like Lhasa or Paro, feature notoriously difficult, high-altitude approaches surrounded by sheer cliffs, requiring specialized crew training and ideal weather conditions. Even if every system on the aircraft works perfectly, the air itself over the Himalayas is violent. When high-speed winds from the jet stream slam into the vertical wall of the Himalayas, they create massive atmospheric waves, known in aviation as mountain waves. These severe updrafts and downdrafts generate intense, unpredictable, clear air turbulence. Unlike storm clouds, clear air turbulence is completely invisible to weather radar. It can drop an aircraft hundreds of feet in seconds, causing severe structural stress and severe passenger injuries before the crew even has time to turn on the seatbelt sign. Additionally, the extreme cold at high altitude increases the risk of jet fuel freezing in the wing tanks during long transits over the plateau. Flying over the Himalayas isn't impossible. A handful of specialized regional routes do cut through specific, highly regulated corridors under strict weather conditions. But for global commercial airlines carrying hundreds of passengers every day, the margin for error is zero. The detour around the mountains isn't an inconvenience. It's the reason why modern air travel remains the safest way to cross the planet. Follow for more science in everyday life.